thousands of years before, crop production is affected by many other factors including industrial pollution, overuse of fertilizers, insecticides, herbicides, heavy metal, and radiation stresses. It has been noted that many pests are becoming resistant to insecticides, and this is exactly the reason why scientists created genetically modified organism, or GMO. Now, what is genetically modified organism? A genetically modified organism, or GMO, is an animal, plant, or microbe whose DNA has been altered using genetic engineering techniques. For thousands of years, humans have used breeding methods to modify organisms. Corn, cattle, and even dogs have been selectively bred over generations to have certain desired traits. Within the last few decades, however, modern advances in biotechnology have allowed scientists to directly modify the DNA of microorganisms, crops, and animals. Conventional methods of modifying plants and animals, like selective breeding and crossbreeding, can take a long time. Moreover, selective breeding and crossbreeding often produce mixed results, with unwanted traits appearing alongside desired characteristics. The specific targeted modification of DNA using biotechnology has allowed scientists to avoid this problem and improve the genetic makeup of an organism without unwanted characteristics tagging along. Most animals that are GMOs are produced for use in laboratory research. These animals are used as models to study the function of specific genes and typically how the genes relate to health and disease. Some GMO animals, however, are produced for human consumption. Salmon, for example, has been genetically engineered to mature faster, and the US Food and Drug Administration has stated that these fish are safe to eat. Genetically modified organisms are perhaps most visible in the production section. The first genetically engineered plants to be produced for human consumption were introduced in the mid-1990s. Today, approximately 90% of the corn, soybeans, and sugar beets on the market are GMOs. Genetically engineered crops produce higher yields, have a longer shelf life, are resistant to disease and pests, and even taste better. These benefits are a plus for both farmers and consumers. For example, higher yields and longer shelf life may lead to lower prices for consumers, and pest-resistant crops means that farmers don't need to buy and use as many pesticides to grow quality crops. Genetically modified crops can thus be kinder to the environment than conventionally grown crops. Ringspot Virus. This virus is a non-enveloped, flexuous rod-shaped particle that is between 760 to 800 nanometer long and 12 nanometer in diameter. Hawaiian papaya production has been severely affected twice by this virus, which was introduced to Ohio as early as 1937. The disease was mild for a number of years, until it either mutated or more aggressive strain was introduced around 1950. Within 12 years, the amount of land under papaya production dropped 94%. Because of this, scientists plan to remove the genes responsible for this particular virus. And this is why there is an introduction of genetically modified organism or genetic engineering process to improve the quality of papaya in Hawaii. Back to wild bananas or banana before the GMO. Bananas were domesticated over 7,000 years ago. Wild bananas usually contain big, hard seeds and have little amount of flesh. They have been selectively bred to have tiny, non-fertile seeds. Without using the genetic engineering process, bananas would have been almost inedible. Now let's have the corn. The corn above the screen that you can see is a corn which is not resistant to pests. And you can see in the screen the features. And this is also the same corn before the genetic engineering process. But after the genetic engineering process, you can see a corn that is pest resistant, which is shown below or at the bottom part of the image. What I mentioned earlier are just benefits of genetic modification or genetic engineering process. And there is still a lot of enumerated advantages, and the same thing for the disadvantages of this particular scientific process. And that's why in this video, I want you to comment. What do you think are the advantages and disadvantages of genetically modified organisms? Now let's proceed to how are GMOs made. GMO or genetically modified organisms has become the common term consumers and popular media use to describe foods that have been created through genetic engineering. And genetic engineering is a process that involves, first, identifying the genetic information or gene that gives an organism like plant, animal, or microorganisms a desired trait. Second, copying the information from the organism that has the trait or that has the desired trait. The third one, inserting that information to the DNA of another organism. And the last one, growing the new organism. To easily understand the process of making the GMO, like GMO plant, let's try to look at the step-by-step process. The following example gives a general idea of the steps it takes to create a GMO plant. This example uses a type of insect-resistant corn called the Bt corn. And keep in mind that the processes for creating a GMO plant, animal, or microorganism may be different. But for plant, let's try the identify as our number one step. To produce a GMO plant, scientists first identify what trait they want that plant to have, such as resistance to drought, herbicides, or insects. Then, they find an organism, plant, animal, or microorganism that already has that trait within its genes. In this example, scientists wanted to create insect-resistant corn to reduce the need to spray pesticides. They identified a gene in a soil bacterium which is called Bacillus thuringiensis, or BT, which produces a natural insecticide that has been in use for many years in traditional and organic agriculture. The second one, we have copy. After scientists find the gene with the desired trait, they copy that gene. For Bt corn, they copied the gene in Bt that would provide the insect resistance trait. For the third one, insert. Scientists use tools to insert the gene into the DNA of the plant. By inserting the Bt gene into the DNA of the corn plant, scientists gave it the insect resistance trait. And the last process is grow. In the laboratory, scientists grow the new corn plant to ensure it has adopted the desired trait or the insect resistance. If successful, scientists first grow and monitor the new corn plant, now called the Bt corn because it contains a gene from Bacillus thuringiensis, in greenhouses and then in small field tests before moving it into larger field tests. GMO plant goes through in-depth review and tests before they are ready to be sold to farmers. Today, those who directly see the most benefits from GMOs are farmers and agricultural companies. As consumers, we probably don't perceive direct benefits for ourselves just by picking the product up off the shelf. This may change in the future if the nutritional properties of plants are enhanced. However, with many GM crops, there are secondary benefits that shoppers are unlikely to be aware of by glancing at items in the aisle, such as lower cost, less soil erosion because tillage isn't as necessary for weed control, less pesticide application, and others. Plants are not the only type of GMO that we use. GMOs are also used to produce many medicines and vaccines that help treat or prevent diseases. Before GMOs, many common medicines had to be extracted from blood donors, animal parts, or even cadavers. These medicines had a number of problems, including the risk of transmission of diseases, inconsistent quality, and unreliable supply. GMO medicines are more consistent and don't carry the same contamination risks.